Welcome to Love Local, the podcast by Jennifer Cornish Design, where we spotlight the incredible independent businesses in Newbury and the surrounding areas. I'm your host, Jen, and each episode I'll be chatting with a local business owner to hear their story, how they started, the challenges they faced, and the creative and marketing decisions that helped them grow. Welcome to Love Local. Today we're joined by Leanne from Good Life Hub in Hampstead Norreys. Welcome, Leanne. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Did you want to start by telling us and the listeners all about your business and how you started Good Life Hub?
Okay. So Good Life Hub is a co-working meeting and event space in Hampstead Norreys. We opened in 2021. But it was an idea and a business that I'd actually launched prior to COVID, but the building was still being built. So we didn't actually open until 2021. And we cater to a lot of small businesses, solo workers, freelancers. We are very near the junction of the M4 and A34. So we have a lot of teams come from far and wide who meet there to use our meeting room or to come and work. We do a lot of different events. So we used to do in the early days a lot of wellbeing events. So sound baths, Wim Hof ice baths, wellbeing events. We do corporate team days. We do a lot of different stuff. We've kind of shifted a little bit now and do more seasonal events.
Okay. And then, so you talked about obviously starting pre-COVID and the building not even being ready. What was that like, kind of starting a business, not even really having your premises up and running and kind of having a complete blank canvas?
That was the best part. That's the idea and creation phase is where I thrive. So when I'd been looking around for a venue actually for a couple of years, having been a solo worker, and I'd already launched my other business. And the idea of having to drive into a city centre to pay for the privilege of going into traffic, going and paying for parking, to then work in a co-working space just so that I had people to be around, felt so counterproductive to arriving in a nice, relaxed frame of mind to then get the best productive day. I spent a lot of time working in cafes, which the cost just consistently added up. So my idea was to create a co-working and wellbeing space. I just needed to find a venue, and that took 2 years. And I got really lucky with this venue because the owners were knocking down an old building and building a new one. So when I had a look at it, it was literally a cement slab. The first row of bricks hadn't even gone up. So we had a very collaborative process. I could see their vision of what they were creating. They put a lot of trust in me to allow me to rent a commercial space for a business that didn't even exist yet. So and I loved it. I was on site. I was, don't put a wall up there. Don't do this. We need radiators here, PowerPoints there, mapping out. I come from a design background. So mapping out where all of the furniture was going to go. I loved every part of the process. And basically, I just shopped my way through COVID. Every time I got bored or depressed, I go, I think I need a new picture of that wall, or I might look for some more chairs. So by the time we opened up, it was just this, this vision that had come to life for me, and I absolutely loved it.
And it felt like COVID kind of increase that industry massively,
huge. Because before then it was mostly like random little co-working spaces and then WeWorks, and that was what had set the tone for co-working. And again, it's all in city centres. My idea from why I thought it was so important to open this space was because, my husband was working. We were on opposite ends of the spectrum. He was commuting 4 hours a day in and out of London, 5 days a week, and travelling internationally. I was at home, a total extrovert, working on my own and bored and lonely. And I'd probably get one super productive day. And then the rest of the time, I'd just be like, what the hell do I do myself now? So I really believe that we should be working differently. You know, I was in the middle of a psychology degree, and I just understanding how our brains work, understanding the importance of collaboration, of how creativity works within teams, the importance of, you know, nice, calm environments for the introverts, but also a nice space for extroverts to come and be together. So I was really, really intentional with the design and purpose of the place, and even just the fact that it has big, light, bright, open rooms. All of that sort of stuff is actually really important for our brains to work productively and to have big ideas and to be able to focus, but not so focused because we're in a small, dark room that our creativity and imagination is limited. So I was really able to bring my whole vision to life in a really intentional way, and I'm really fortunate for that. So the fact that it took me 2 years to find a space was a blessing in disguise, because when I found it, I was able to create what I wanted out of it and not work with an existing 4 walls and a ceiling, but also that COVID hit while my building was still being built. So for a lot of people who thought, why would you have a co-working space in the middle of nowhere? Mm-hmm. For me, it was because I knew that while I wasn't meeting all the other people out there who didn't have somewhere to work, I knew that they existed. And that's been the really interesting part, is people turn up and go, oh, I know you. I've seen you from somewhere. And everyone kind of knows each other, and there's that 6 degrees of separation. But in the early days, I mean, people were coming and they said, I moved out just before COVID and I have been so lonely. I've not been able to make any friends, or we're all going crazy working from home in the same place, and I can't work because the kids are interrupting. My wife can't wait to get me out of the house, and my husband can't wait to get me out of the house. And so it felt like this really important, almost like a social experiment after COVID, of getting people back together and how important that was for their mental health, let alone productivity.
Did you find that when COVID happened, because it increased the market for that business, did that panic you at all to think, hold on a minute, I want to get open as soon as possible so that kind of no one else, because your space is amazingly unique. It's absolutely beautiful. If no one's been there, then I really advise going there, because once you go there, you realise there's nowhere else I'd want to work. And so, yeah, did that panic you to think, oh, hold on a minute, this is an industry that's going to grow quite quickly. I don't want anyone else to kind of come up with this concept, especially locally, so that you then have that direct competition? No,
I think what panicked me was when the space was ready to be used and I would be starting to pay a rent and we couldn't get people back into the workplace. But actually it worked out. The timing could not, I mean, it was completely outside of my control, but it felt very much dictated by fate. So when we did open, lots of people coming in. In terms of competition, what I would say is that everybody, and I guess a lot of small business owners worry about this, and there's kind of 2 sides to it. One side is that if you're coming from a genuine place that it's your idea, that idea has come from all of your history, your working history, all the different skills you bring to the mix, all the different people and businesses you encounter, that gap in the market that you see. And there is so much thought process that goes into building something and bringing it to life that for someone to copy, they don't have any of that. So unless they're bringing their own slant to it, then it's always just going to be this game of cat and mouse of, oh, you launched something, now I'm going to copy, and you've launched something new and now I'm going to copy. And I think when that happens, you just have to stay brave and say, I know why I've launched my business and I know what I'm creating. And I guess that's different if you're a product-based business, because it is actually very easy to copy products these days. You know, you can take something that someone spent a significant amount of time having developed and sourcing, you know, manufacturing offshore, and then you can just take one of their products and have it copied. That's a lot harder. But when you're providing a service and in a physical space, it's really difficult for someone to emulate what we have from a physical space. We have a beautiful barn that we are in the countryside next to ancient woodlands. We've got an orchard, a terraced orchard, and a fresh swimming lake. And as soon as people drive through the drive, they just automatically relax. And the first thing people say when they've never been to our place before is, "This has such a lovely vibe." I don't know what the magic is about it, but it just feels lovely. And then there's the service side of stuff, and that is, you can hire someone to be a community manager, but quite frankly, I love to chat. So that's my favorite thing. And I'm curious by nature, and I love connecting people and building a community. So that's what I've created. You can't replicate that someone else. You can replicate your own version of that, and then it is something different. But you can't replicate what I have without having that exact same building in that exact same space and having me there as well. And I'm not saying I'm the magic piece to that business, but it's all the pieces that come together that create that business, and that can't be copied. In terms of people, I think the other thing I would say, if you are a business starting out, is, when you're small, you would never think of having NDAs in place with people, right? If you're getting advice, hiring, strategists in, whatever it may be, whether it's social media, whether it's a little bit different for branding and design because you're creating something quite special. But you have to be really careful about who you share your information with, because that is where people will share and copy. And good ideas, ideas really are a dime a dozen. Good ideas are not so easy to come by, which is why people do want to try and copy other businesses, because it's very much I love what they're creating, I'm going to do that too. But again, it's about having that secret magic to it. So you don't have to be successful in business by coming up with something so unnew and unheard of, which, let's face it, today's day and age is quite difficult. Unless you're like a massive tech startup with millions and millions of investment behind you, or you've got a really unique product and have a lot of investment. But the reality is that most people start a business with, it might be in a different location, or it might be that they are, improving the gaps or the services or the something about what else they see out there, and they say, I can do this bigger and better. But by just copying it outright it just doesn't work.
And it's interesting you mention NDAs, because I do that now with everyone that I work with. I make them sign an NDA before they even start working with us, just because I have been that before, and it's just to protect myself, to protect my work, and to protect my clients. So you obviously can't NDA like your friends and family and things like that. So that's quite how do you balance that out in knowing kind of, okay, when does it become friends? When does it become business? Like, who do you share that information with?
I think friends and family are an interesting one, because they will either not get your idea, and because I've got 2 businesses, about to be 3, but in every single case, there have been people that go, I don't really, why would you do that? I don't get it. And then once you've launched and people see it in action, no one questions that, because they understand it then because it's in action. The flip side of that is you'll get people who say, I think it's a great idea. Yeah, you should definitely do it. And they're encouraging because they love you, but it's not necessarily a good idea. And so some people start businesses all the time that are not great ideas, or not ever going to have a big enough edge to be successful, because their friends and family went, yes, it's brilliant, you should do it. So there's kind of that side. And I also think you just look, when I was launching Good Life Hub, I had a couple of strategy sessions with experts in their field. I thought were experts in their field, and it turned out to be massive, massive breaches of confidence and trust. Never would have occurred to me to have an NDA in place. So you obviously have an NDA in place so that you're not creating branding ideas for people that then take it off and either do it themselves or, have their friend build them a website, which is a common challenge you face, right? But the other side is that so you've got it to protect you, but a lot of times when you are hiring a service or paying someone for their expertise, you're not getting that because if they don't have it in place, it's really rare for new startups to have that sort of stuff in place. And usually you know it's sometimes you learn just through being burnt, and that's a lot harder, and sometimes that can be the make or break of some people's business, and that's really difficult. What I would say is, if you're worried, have an NDA. I mean, AI is brilliant for creating all kinds of stuff, right? You can create your own NDA and have everyone sign it that you're having any kind of conversations where they're understanding the ins and outs of your business. I would say maybe don't share too much of that level of detail about your business with people. The reality is, even when you launch, people will see what you're doing and go, oh, I love that idea, I'm going to copy it. And that's happened to us so many times. You know, people just need to, you know, there's a saying, stay in your lane. And I think that's as much for other people to go with their idea. If someone is taking your idea, then okay, there's that lovely element of flattery, right, by copying. But I also think if they're going to take it, then they should run with it with their own slant on it, because that's the only way it's going to work, right? And you can just say, I'm here, I'm doing my thing, I'm going to do it to the very best of my ability. And then, you know, I mean, but you live and learn, right?
Yeah. And what would you say your biggest challenge was when you first started out your business?
That stuff.
Okay.
Everything else. I mean, I think for a lot of businesses, when they're starting out, they start out because they have an idea for a product or service, right? Or they've already been doing something and then want to go out and do it themselves. There is so much to learn when you start a new business, from what kind of legal structure should I have? Do I need an accountant? Like every single functioning aspect of a business, you have to research and learn. I was fortunate that I love that stuff. Like I just love, you know, learning something new, but it does get really overwhelming, even for someone that loves learning and loves to pick up new skills. It does get overwhelming. You get to a bit of a stage where you're just saying, I just can't learn one more thing. I have no more space within my head. But for some people, that's just even having to learn something new is really overwhelming. And I think that is where you need to reach out and tap into some really great networking groups, you know, coaches, experts in their field, whatever. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but just get support where you can and where you need it most, because otherwise it'll either take forever to get your business off the ground, or you may never get your business off the ground. And I'm a big believer that ideas kind of land on lots of people at once. And it depends on who's brave enough to run with it straight away. Otherwise, it just kind of moves on to someone else. I think there's a lot of energy that happens, even talking about light bulbs, or not talking about light bulbs, but looking at the light bulbs. You know, I think there were 5 different people around the world that came up with light bulbs at exactly the same time. So it's being brave enough to just go, I'm going to run with this and try it out. And if it doesn't work out, then so be it. But there's nothing worse than sitting on an idea for years and then everyone else starts it. And then you think, oh, well, I've missed the boat now. Now I have to come up with another idea.
Yeah. And I suppose you've got to think, okay, if you were to see someone launch that business, how would that make you feel? And that kind of puts that into perspective to go, actually, no, I really want to launch this business, because if someone else runs with this idea, then that wouldn't be great.
Yeah.
Okay. So talking about experts in fields, obviously design and marketing come in a lot when you're starting your business. How has that helped shape your business? And talk us through the process of that and how some of the marketing things that you have done to support your business.
I'm lucky that I come from a fashion design background. So things looking lovely is really important to me. That I was able to bring that through to my entire space. And I mean, to the point where I was like very particular about the colors and the look and feel, and were the chairs right? Was the artwork right? Was that the right vase for the space? Because with the branding, and that's one of the things that we're doing. We're going to go through and change our website, because actually the website came first, because I needed a website while we were building the building. And actually what ended up being created, the the website and that look and feel doesn't quite match. So that's why we've come full circle to the point. And I think businesses need to always be on top of that. Businesses change their look and feel. You should kind of reassess it every few years, right?
Yeah.
You know all of this and you work with people doing this all the time, because how you start isn't always the same as how you grow or how you scale a business. And sometimes the name you start with, the look and feel that you start with, then needs some tweaks in order to better represent the path that you're on. And when you start out, you don't know where you're going to be in 2 years or 5 years. So a lot of businesses tend to go, I have a logo, I have a website, I have branding, and that's it forever. And then you start to look and feel outdated in the grand scheme of especially the competition, right? Yeah. So I think tapping back into your branding and whether your branding still reflects your business is something we should be doing every couple of years.
Yeah. And we see that a lot. We see a lot of startup businesses that kind of do their branding and their website before they've even launched, because they obviously need to get it out there.
Yeah.
And then it's only when they're a couple of years in that it does evolve, and you start to realize, okay, these are the people I want to be working with. This is my target market that I'm positioning myself at. So do I need to change my color palette? Do I need to change my name? Do I need to add a couple of extra services pages to my website? So yeah, that's what's great with websites, is that they can change so easily and evolve so easily, and there's not a cost of print and things like that. Obviously, if you're changing a logo, that's a bit different. But yeah, I would always advise people to kind of always check in with their website. Is it up to date? Is it up to date with what their messaging want to say, who they're trying to target? And yeah, as the business grows, that website and branding grows with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think that's where like the service you provide is really important for small business owners, because yes, you can go build your own website. And to be honest, that's the only way that some people can start out, cheap logo, build a website yourself. And as the business grows, that's when they tap into experts to have it done professionally. But even just that lack of understanding around, I have a website, SEO just magically happens. No, it doesn't. All these things are really important stuff that when you're just starting out a business, if you don't have that background, you don't know what you're doing. So I was really fortunate when I lived in Sydney. I used to be a project manager, and we used to for an agency that used to build websites and digital media. But that was back in the day where if you wanted a website, it was built by code from scratch.
Yeah.
And, it was going to cost you probably 30 grand for a small website, upwards of 200, 300, 400. I mean, I worked on a website and CRM system that was $1 million. And that was, I'm showing my age here, 20 years ago, right? There were massive, massive barriers to people being able to start their own businesses just through that scale. Now it's so easy. And, I know that you offer the smaller packages that people can get started with when they're just starting out. And then as their business grows, then they can add, like you said, add pages or build a bigger, more robust website. It's not that difficult. What I would say from a design and functionality perspective is try and get it right, because everyone has a website now, because everyone has to have decent branding now. If you don't do it well, people's perception automatically is that it's a bit of a shoddy business, right? Because the website's hard to use or it doesn't work well on mobile, all of these kinds of stuff. It's so much more important than people realize. It is your shop front. Yeah. It is that turning up and going, is this like a place I want, is this a business I want to work with?
Yeah. And they say you have 3 seconds to make an impression with a website. So because people are scrolling so quickly now, and they're so easy it's so easy to dip in and out of stuff. You've got 3 seconds. So your website needs to load quickly. The images need to be vibrant. You've got 3 seconds to make a impression for people to stay on your website. So that's really key to kind of get the right people involved. It is great that we have things like Wix and stuff like that people can do it themselves if they don't have the budget. But yeah, those first 3 seconds of when your website loads are really, really crucial.
Yeah.
What would you say then the biggest decision from a design and marketing point of view has been, like, as you've grown your business?
I think just tapping back in and going, does my branding still reflect the business I've created? And I think, I've mentioned I've got 2 businesses. One had got to a point where it absolutely didn't. The Good Life Hub has stayed fairly stable to what it is. But even then, I think when I first launched that, the branding. So you built the website. The branding was the website was far more difficult to build because the branding. And I was a newbie then. So even though I'd worked in the space before, I always had teams of engineers and teams of designers, right? I didn't have to do any of that myself. They just gave me something beautiful and I thought, great. But when you're doing it yourself, it's a lot more difficult. And sometimes it can be quite a rushed process. And I feel like we are now coming to the point where we're updating it and making it more reflective. And so, and that's even that's just.
And I always say to people, when it's their own stuff, their own logo, it's so much harder to make a decision. Whereas if you were looking at someone else's logo, and you can comment really easily on someone else's logo, but when it's actually your own stuff and it's trying to reflect your business, your personality, so much harder to make a decision.
Yeah.
Okay. So with regards to kind of business in general, what advice would you give someone that was either looking to start their business or is currently running their business? What is the best piece of advice that you would give someone running their business?
Oh, I think you have to be brave in a lot of aspects of business, taking a leap, even in starting a business, especially, I mean, I've got businesses in fields that I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about. I'd literally only ever worked at a co-working space for one day in my life. I'd never run an office. They weren't, that wasn't a job I'd done before. I have a tea business. I didn't even drink tea till I met and married an Englishman. But for me, it was I've got an idea. Oh, is there something quite magical that we could create there? Yes. Okay. I'm gonna take a leap. And I guess it's being brave enough to do that, tapping into help when you need it, because unless you have a lot of money behind you, you're going to have to find the right people to give you the knowledge you need. And if you're an introvert, that's really hard. For me, I'll just talk to anybody anywhere and find out what I need to know. But you're bootstrapping everything, right? So being able to do things well on a budget is really difficult. That first phase of starting a business can be really fun. You've got an idea, you're building something, you're creating this vision. And then you get into the trenches and then you think, oh, God, this isn't so fun, is it? Or maybe I should just go back and get a job. Every business goes through that. Every business owner will get lonely. Every business will struggle with the day-to-day. Every business owner gets caught in the day-to-day without having time to work on the business. So, we've created with Katie from the Shy Collective this incubator program for small business owners who face all of those day-to-day challenges. You're in that program, right? It's having a network of like-minded people. And we are very, very intentional about A, the businesses we work with, B, creating a space where when people come in, they know that they can open up and be vulnerable. They can talk about confidential business information and know that that's not going to go out of that room, and that the people who who essentially, we kind of dubbed it the board you can't afford, because it is about being able to bounce ideas off other people and have different opinions. And we tend to tap into the people we know or from our past work experience that are all doing the same thing. But I really think the best ideas come from pulling bits from different industries and then creating something that works in a way that it hasn't been done before in an industry, right? So, and you only get differences this is why DE&I is so important in the corporate workspace, right? Because without different opinions, without different voices, you're not going to have the very best idea that you can have. So I think that finding a community of people to tap into, especially for solo business owners, is super important.
Yeah. And that community over at the Hub is amazing. So I would recommend anyone going to go and check it out. So can people can just pop along, or do they need to book in?
It's always better to book in, just because you don't want to turn up and be disappointed that you can't get a desk.
Yep.
You can reach out to us at hello@goodlifehub.co.uk. We've got our website, which will new branding coming soon, and new layout of the website.
And then on Instagram, they can follow you at?
Yes, it's goodlife_hub. Someone already nicked that one for me. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on Love Local, and it's great chatting.
Thanks for doing my website.
Thanks. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Love Local. If you're a small business owner in Newbury or the surrounding area and you've got a story to tell, I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to follow, leave a review, and share it with someone who'd love it too. Thanks again for listening. I'm Jen, and I'll see you again on the next episode of Love Local.